The galaxy had known humans for 37 years. In that time, every species learned one simple truth about them. Humans never stopped talking. They talked when they were happy. They talked when they were angry. They talked when ships burned and stations fell. Even in the worst moments, when death was certain and hope was gone, humans would find a way to send one last message. One more word. One final attempt to be heard. The Vrexians thought this made humans weak. Admiral Una stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Dawn. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She had commanded human fleets for 20 years. She had seen wars begin and end. She had buried friends and welcomed enemies into peace. Through all of it, she had never stopped believing that words could save lives. Today, she watched the Vrexian fleet gather beyond the asteroid belt. There were hundreds of ships, big ones with heavy weapons, small ones built for speed. All of them pointed at the human colonies behind her. Captain Dohun stood at the communications station. He was young, maybe 30, with quick hands and a sharp mind. Right now, those hands moved across 17 different channels, talking to 17 different species who had allied with humanity. The Corvani are moving their ships to support position, he reported. The Breen want to know our plan. The ETH Collective is asking if we need medical ships. Tell them to wait, Una said. We try words first. Commander Hannah pulled up tactical displays on the main screen. She was tall and serious, the kind of officer who slept with weapon reports under her pillow. Admiral, they have positioned their fleet for an attack run. They are not here to talk. Then we will talk enough for both of us, Una replied. Open a channel to the Vrexian command ship. The channel opened. On the screen appeared High Commander Vrex. He was large, covered in dark scales, with 4 arms and a mouth full of sharp teeth. His eyes were yellow and cold. Human Admiral, he said. His voice was deep and rough. You waste my time. High Commander, Una replied with a small bow of her head. I am here to find peace. Your fleet threatens our colonies. 2 million people live on New Bizin alone. Families, children. They have done nothing to your empire. Rex made a sound like grinding rocks. It was laughter. Your colonies sit on resources we need. Move your people, or we will move them for you. In pieces. For the next 6 hours, Una talked. She offered to share the resources. Rex refused. She offered to pay for mining rights. Rex refused. She offered to relocate the colonies over 5 years, giving people time to leave safely. Rex refused. She cited 17 different treaties that the Vrexians had signed. Rex said treaties were paper, and paper burned. She warned of consequences. Rex laughed and asked what consequences a species of talkers could possibly bring. Ambassador Tyke joined the negotiations after the 3rd hour. He was an old man who had spent his entire life talking to aliens. He had made peace with species that ate their enemies. He had found common ground with beings made of living crystal. He had never failed to find some small piece of shared understanding. Today, his voice grew hoarse. His hands shook. And still the Vrexians laughed. Lieutenant Unji watched from her station near the weapons console. Her fists were tight, her jaw hard. Admiral, she whispered during a brief pause. They are not listening. They will never listen. Una did not look at her. We must try. We have tried. For 6 hours, we have tried. Then we try for 6 more. But there would be no 6 more hours. At the end of hour 7, Vrex leaned forward on his command throne. His yellow eyes glowed with contempt. Human Admiral, he said, I am tired of your noise. Your words are wind. They mean nothing. Tomorrow, my fleet will take your colonies. Your people will scream, and their screams will mean as little as your words. This conversation is over. The channel closed. Silence fell on the bridge of the eternal dawn. Every officer turned to look at Admiral Yuna. They waited for her next order. Another channel. Another message. Another attempt. Yuna stood very still. Her calm eyes looked at the dark screen where Vrex had been. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she spoke. Her voice was quiet, almost soft. Close all communications. Captain Dohan's hands stopped moving. Admiral? All frequencies. All channels. Every ship in the fleet. Complete silence. Now. But Admiral, I gave an order, Captain. Dohan swallowed hard. His fingers moved. One by one, the communication channels went dark. The endless chatter of human ship status reports, tactical updates, jokes between pilots. Songs from the crew quarters, all of it stopped. The fleet went silent. Across the void, the Vrexians noticed immediately. Their translators, so used to filtering the constant stream of human noise, suddenly had nothing to translate. On the Vrexian flagship, a communications officer checked his equipment twice. Then 3 times. "High Commander," he said, his voice uncertain. "The humans have stopped transmitting." Vrex turned his yellow eyes toward the officer. "All of them?" "Yes, High Commander." Complete silence. Not a single signal from any human vessel. Vrex sat back on his throne. Something cold moved through his body. He did not know what it was. He had never felt it before. "Strange," he said, but it was not strange. It was a warning. The last warning the Vrexians would ever receive. They just did not know how to read it. News travels fast in space. Faster than light, if you have the right equipment. Within 1 hour of the human fleet going silent, every species in the galaxy knew something was wrong. The Kovani ambassador was an old creature with blue skin and too many eyes. He had fought beside humans in 3 different wars. He had shared meals with them, laughed with them, mourned with them. When his aide told him that all human communications had stopped, he did not ask questions. He did not wait for more information. He simply ordered his entire fleet to pull back to defensive positions. His aide was confused. "Ambassador, should we not offer support? The humans may need help against the Vrexians." The ambassador shook his head slowly. All of his eyes were dark with memory. "You do not understand. You are young. You have not seen what humans become. What do you mean?" The ambassador looked out the window at the stars. His voice was quiet. "Humans talk because they believe there is still hope. They argue and debate and negotiate because they think words can change things. When they stop talking, it means they have stopped hoping. And when they stop hoping?" The ambassador did not answer. He did not need to. His silence said everything. 3 systems away, the Vrexian advance force dropped out of hyperspace. Fleet Commander Kreth led 50 warships toward the human colony of New Bizon. He expected resistance. He expected desperate human ships trying to slow his advance. He expected screaming transmissions begging for mercy. He found nothing. The space around New Bizon was empty. The orbital stations were dark. The defense platforms floated silent, their weapons cold. Not a single ship challenged him. Not a single voice demanded his withdrawal. "Scan for life signs on the planet," Kreth ordered. His sensor officer worked his console. "Commander, the colony is empty. All 2 million inhabitants appear to have been evacuated." "Evacuated? When? How?" "Unknown, Commander. But the planet is abandoned. Only automated systems remain." Kreth felt something twist in his stomach. This was not right. Humans did not simply leave. They fought. They argued. They made noise until the very end. They did not go quietly into the dark. "Send a message to High Commander Vrex," Kreth said. "Tell him the humans have fled. Tell him their territory is undefended. On the colony world below, the last human presence was Governor Myray. She stood in her empty office, watching Kreth's fleet through the window. The evacuation ships had left hours ago, carrying every man, woman, and child to safety. Only she remained. Her assistant Junho had refused to leave her. He was young, barely 22, with the kind of loyalty that bordered on stupidity. Governor, the last transport is waiting. We need to go. Myray did not move from the window. In a moment, the Rexians will be here soon. I know. Junho walked to stand beside her. He looked at the alien ships in the sky. Governor, what is happening? Why did the Admiral order silence? Why are we retreating? Myray finally turned away from the window. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sad. We are not retreating, Junho. We are clearing the battlefield. She walked toward the door. Junho followed, still confused. Clearing it for what? For what comes next? They reached the transport, just as the Rexian ships entered orbit. The small vessel lifted off, pushing through the atmosphere, racing toward the jump point where the human fleet waited in silence. Junho looked back at the planet that had been his home. Will we ever go back? Yes, Myray said. When it is over. When what is over? Myray did not answer. High Commander Vrex received Kreth's message with satisfaction. He broadcast a mocking transmission to the empty human frequencies. Do you see now? Your species is nothing but words. When faced with true strength, you run. You hide. You abandon your own worlds. History will remember humans as cowards who talked big and died small. No response came. Vrex ordered his fleet forward. 300 ships moved toward the heart of human space. They passed abandoned stations, empty outposts, dark satellites. Everywhere they looked, the humans had simply vanished. This is too easy, his tactical officer muttered. It is exactly what I predicted, Vrex replied. Humans are weak. Their endless talking was just a mask for their fear. Now that mask has fallen, and we see them for what they truly are. Commander, I recommend we slow our advance. Send scouts ahead. This could be a trap. Vrex made the grinding sound of Rexian laughter. A trap? Look around you. There is nothing here. No ships, no weapons, no resistance. The humans have given us their space without a fight. The fleet continued forward. They did not notice the shadows. Moving behind them, they did not see the dark shapes. Sliding out from asteroid fields and hidden bases, they did not detect the 1,000 human vessels that had been waiting, silent and patient, for them to walk into the killing ground. Vrex was still laughing when his sensor officer's voice cut through the bridge. The officer's tone was strange, shaking, wrong. Commander, our deep space sensors are detecting movement. Movement? Where? The officer's scales had gone pale. His hands trembled as he worked his console. Behind us, sir. And around us. Ships emerging from everywhere. The tactical display updated. Then updated again. Then again. Where moments ago there had been empty space, now there were ships. Human ships. Destroyers and cruisers and carriers. Weapons platforms and missile boats. War machines of every size, appearing from places the Rexians had not known to look. They had walked into a cage of steel and silence, and they had not even known it was closing around them. General Sungho had spent 40 years serving humanity. He had fought in wars that history books barely remembered. He had shaken hands with aliens who could crush his skull with one finger. He had talked to monsters and made them into friends. He believed in words. He believed that any problem could be solved if people just sat down and talked long enough. He had proven it 100 times over, but he also understood something that the Vrexians did not. Words were not weakness. Words were mercy. Words were humanity's way of giving the universe a chance to be better than its worst instincts. And when words failed, when every chance had been given and every door had been closed, what came next was not weakness either. What came next was the end. He sat in the command chair of the Silent Thunder, watching the Vrexian fleet realize their position. Around him, his bridge crew worked in absolute quiet. No chatter, no jokes, no music from the crew quarters. Just the soft hum of engines and the gentle beep of tactical displays. Lieutenant Jiyan sat at the communications station. Her console was alive with incoming signals. "General, they are trying to hail us. Multiple frequencies. High Commander Vrex is demanding to negotiate." Sung-Ho did not look at her. "Do not respond." "Sir, their forward elements are attempting to surrender. Do not respond. General, they are begging." Sung-Ho finally turned his head. His eyes were old and tired, but his voice was steady. "Lieutenant, I heard that species laugh while our ambassador begged for the lives of 2 million colonists. I heard them mock us for wanting peace. I heard them promise to kill our children and scatter their ashes across the void." He turned back to the tactical display. "I do not hear them now." Across the silent frequencies, High Commander Vrex's voice crackled with increasing desperation. The translator turned his words into human language, but Sung-Ho had ordered all audio off. He did not need to hear. He already knew what Vrex was saying. Every species said the same thing when the trap closed around them. The first wave hit the Vrexian rear guard at exactly 0347 hours. Ship time. Human vessels moved with the kind of precision that only came from months of planning. They had mapped every Vrexian patrol route. They had studied every ship in the enemy fleet. They knew how Vrexian captains thought, how they reacted, how they panicked. They had positioned themselves so perfectly that the Vrexians had no room to run, no space to maneuver, no escape routes left open. This was not a battle. This was an execution. Vrexian ships began to explode. First 1, then 10, then 100. The darkness of space lit up with fire. Escape pods launched, only to be tractored in by human ships and held in silence. Distress signals went unanswered. Surrender broadcasts met only empty frequencies. On the Vrexian flagship, chaos had taken hold. Officers screamed commands at each other. Damage reports flooded in faster than anyone could read them. Shields failed under the constant barrage. Hull breaches vented atmosphere into the void, sucking crew members out into the cold dark. High Commander Vrex stood in the center of his bridge, watching his empire crumble around him. His yellow eyes were wide with something he had never felt before. Fear. Why will they not respond? He screamed at his communications officer. Why will they not demand our surrender? Why will they not talk? The officer had no answer. He was too busy trying to restore systems that had been dead for 10 minutes. Vrex grabbed his tactical officer by the throat. "Tell me what is happening. Tell me how to stop this." The tactical officer was bleeding from a wound on his head. His scales were cracked. One of his arms hung limp at his side. But he met his commander's eyes without flinching. "They are not trying to defeat us, High Commander." "Then, what are they doing?" "They are erasing us." Vrex dropped him. He stumbled back, looking at the tactical display. Human ships moved through his fleet like wolves through sheep. They did not stop to accept surrenders. They did not pause to take prisoners. They simply destroyed everything in their path and moved on to the next target. "This is not war," Vrex whispered. "This is slaughter." "Yes," his tactical officer said from the floor. "Now you understand. But why?" "We were willing to negotiate. We were ready to talk." The tactical officer laughed. It was a bitter, broken sound. "No, High Commander. We were never willing to talk. We mocked them. We laughed at them. We called them weak and soft and cowardly. We told them their words meant nothing. He coughed blood onto the deck, and now they believe us. Rex tried to open a channel. Any channel. His own voice, desperate and raw, broadcasting on every frequency. Humans, we surrender. Completely. Unconditionally. Please, just speak to us. The silence continued. General Sung-ho watched the Rexian flagship on his display. He knew Rex was begging. He knew the alien commander had finally understood his mistake. He knew that somewhere on that dying ship, a creature who had laughed at human mercy was now praying for it. Lieutenant Ji-Yin's voice was soft. General, he is offering full surrender. His entire fleet, everything. Sung-ho closed his eyes. For a moment, just a moment, he remembered being young. He remembered believing that every life was precious, that every enemy could become a friend, that words could heal any wound. Then he opened his eyes. Continue the operation, he said. Complete silence. The killing continued until dawn. The Battle of the Rex Corridor lasted 11 hours. When it was over, the Rexian 7th Fleet no longer existed. Not captured, not surrendered, not defeated, simply gone. Every ship, every station, every supply depot that had been used to threatened human colonies had been removed from the universe with cold efficiency. Admiral Yuna stood alone in her quarters aboard the Eternal Dawn. The victory celebrations happening throughout the fleet did not reach her here. She had ordered her door sealed and her communications blocked. She needed silence of a different kind now. On her desk sat the casualty reports. Human losses had been minimal. 312 dead across the entire fleet. Most of them from accidents or system failures, not enemy fire. The Rexians had barely touched them. Rexian losses were listed on a separate page. The number was so large that it seemed unreal. 300,000 souls, give or take. An entire fleet's worth of living beings reduced to debris and vapor in 11 hours. Yuna picked up the page. Her hands did not shake. She had trained herself too well for that. But something inside her chest felt heavy and cold. A knock came at her door. I said no visitors, she called out. Admiral, it is Captain Dawn. The Galactic Assembly is demanding answers. They say this cannot wait. Yuna closed her eyes. Of course they were demanding answers. They always did. After the silence ended, she opened the door. Daohan stood there, his young face pale and uncertain. He had been awake for 2 days straight. They all had. What did they want to know? Yuna asked. They want to know why we did not accept the surrenders. Dozens of Rexian ships tried to give up. Hundreds of escape pods were broadcasting distress signals. We ignored all of them. Yuna walked past him into the corridor. Follow me. They walked through the ship in silence. Crew members stepped aside as Yuna passed. Some of them saluted. Some of them could not meet her eyes. The weight of what they had done hung over everyone like a dark cloud. They reached the observation deck. Through the massive windows, the debris field was visible. Pieces of Rexian ships tumbled slowly through the void, glinting in the light of distant stars. Here and there, emergency beacons still blinked, marking spots where survivors might be floating in the darkness. Did we receive a surrender? Yuna asked quietly. Dawn blinked. Yes, Admiral. Dozens of them. On every frequency, I heard no surrender. The captain stood very still. He understood what she meant. When humans went silent, everything else became noise. Just static in a universe that had stopped listening back. There will be consequences, he said carefully. The other species are afraid now. Some are calling this a war crime. They say we murdered those who tried to give up. Yuna continued watching the debris field. Was it a war crime when we talked for 6 hours while their fleet prepared to massacre our colonists? Was it a war crime when we offered 17 different paths to peace while they laughed at our weakness? No, Admiral. We gave them every chance. Every single chance to walk away. To live. To let our people live. Her voice remained steady, but something in her eyes was very far away. They chose this. Every Rexian commander who died tonight made a choice. They decided that human words meant nothing. They decided that our mercy was weakness. She finally turned to face Dawn. We simply stopped correcting them. The captain had no response to that. He stood beside his admiral as the debris field slowly rotated past the windows. A graveyard of ships and dreams and creatures who had learned too late what human silence meant. Across the galaxy, the message spread. The Vrexian Empire received word of their fleet's destruction 3 hours after it happened. The Emperor refused to believe it at first. 300 warships destroyed in a single night? Impossible. Humans were talkers, not fighters. They were soft creatures who hid behind words because they feared battle. Then the images arrived. The debris field. The broken hulls. The silence where the Seventh Fleet should have been. The Emperor ordered the recording of HFY. Commander Vrex's final transmission played for his council. They listened to their fleet commander begging, screaming, pleading for the humans to speak. They heard his voice break as the silence continued. They heard him die still talking, still hoping for a response that never came. When the recording ended, no one in the council chamber spoke. The Emperor looked at his advisors. These were warriors who had conquered 100 worlds. They had never known fear. They had laughed at the idea of human strength. Now their scales were pale. Their eyes were dark. Their hands trembled against the council table. Send a message to the human government, the Emperor said finally. Tell them we wish to discuss peace. His chief advisor leaned forward. What terms should we offer? The Emperor stared at the empty space where the Seventh Fleet had been displayed on the tactical map. Whatever terms they want. Give them everything they ask for. He paused. And pray they are still willing to talk. The humans responded to the peace request within the hour. Ambassador Tyke, his voice no longer hoarse, his hands no longer shaking, accepted the Vrexian surrender and began negotiating terms. The talking had resumed, and the galaxy breathed again, not understanding that the talking was the only thing keeping them all alive. 30 years had passed since the Battle of the Vrex Corridor. The galaxy had changed. The Vrexian Empire still existed, but it was smaller now, quieter, more careful about which species it threatened. The debris field had been cleaned up, the dead had been mourned, and the universe had moved on. But the lesson remained. Instructor Borum stood at the front of a classroom in the Galactic Diplomatic Academy. She was 63 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and lines around her eyes that spoke of things seen and burdens carried. She had served on the Eternal Dawn during the silence. She had watched the Vrexian fleet burn. She had seen what humans became when hope died. Now she taught young diplomats from a dozen different species. They sat before her in rows, their various eyes and sensors fixed on her face. Corvani and Breen, Ith and Vrexian. Even a few young humans who had never known war. Behind her, a holographic display showed the final moments of the Vrexian Seventh Fleet. Ships exploding in silence. Debris spinning through the void. 300,000 lives ending without a single word. You will hear many species describe humanity as talkative, Borum began. Her voice was calm, like a teacher explaining simple math. They will call us negotiators, diplomats, a species that prefers words to weapons. And they are correct. She paused. Let the silence stretch. Watch the young faces grow uncomfortable. But you must understand what that means. She touched a control. The display zoomed in on a single Vrexian ship, frozen in the moment before its destruction. Emergency lights blinked on its hull. Escape pods were launching. Surrender signals were broadcasting. None of it had mattered. When we talk, Borum continued, we are giving you something precious. We are giving you time. We are giving you chances. We are showing you that we believe, despite everything, that there is a version of the future where we do not have to kill each other. A young Vrexian student shifted in his seat. His scales were a lighter color than his ancestors, a sign of the new generation. He had grown up hearing stories of the silence. Now he was hearing them from the other side. Instructor, he asked, his voice careful, why did humanity not accept the surrenders? My great-uncle was on one of those ships. He tried to give up. He begged for mercy. Borum looked at him. There was no anger in her eyes. No judgment. Just something sad and tired. I am sorry for your loss, she said. Truly. But I need you to understand something. For 7 hours before the battle began, we begged for mercy too. We asked your fleet to spare our colonies. We offered everything we had. And your commanders laughed. She turned back to the display. We did not ignore the surrenders out of cruelty. We ignored them because, by that point, we had stopped hearing anything at all. When humans go silent, we are not angry. We are not cruel. We are simply finished. We've accepted that talking will not save anyone. And once we accept that, once we truly believe it, we do not know how to stop. The classroom was very quiet. Borum touched another control. The display shifted to show the aftermath. The debris field. The rescue operations that came too late. The peace treaty that followed. The Vrexian Empire learned something that night. They learned that human patience is not endless. They learned that our words are not weakness. They learned that when we stop talking, it means we have given up on you. She looked at each student in turn. And hope was the only thing keeping you alive. A young human woman raised her hand. She was maybe 20, with bright eyes and the kind of confidence that came from never having seen war. Instructor, how do we prevent this from happening again? How do we make sure humanity never goes silent? Borum smiled. It was a small, sad smile. You listen. When humans talk, when we argue and debate and propose solutions that seem foolish, you listen. Because every word we speak is a chance we are giving you. Every argument is proof that we still believe in you. She walked to the window of the classroom. Outside, ships from a dozen species moved through the orbital lanes of the Academy station. Humans and aliens walked together on the promenades below. Children of species that had once been enemies played games in the parks. The galaxy has been at peace for 30 years, Borum said. Do you know why? No one answered. Because humanity has not stopped talking. Because every day, human diplomats wake up and choose to believe that words can still change things. Because somewhere in our hearts, we still hope that the universe is better than its worst moments. She turned back to face her students. If you take nothing else from my class, take this. Humanity's greatest weapon is not our ships or our soldiers or our technology. It is our patience. Our willingness to talk one more time, try one more solution, offer one more chance. She paused. And the terrible, terrible things we become when that patience runs out. The lesson ended. Students gathered their things and filed out of the classroom, whispering among themselves. The young Vrexian lingered, staring at the frozen image on the display. His great-uncle's ship, seconds from destruction. Borum walked over to stand beside him. You have questions. Just one, he said. Do you regret it? The silence. The killing. Do you wish it had gone differently? Borum considered the question for a long moment. Every day, she said finally. Every single day, I wish they had listened. I wish they had taken one of our offers. I wish we had never had to stop talking. She looked at the young Vrexian. But I do not regret what we did. I regret that we had to do it. There is a difference. The student nodded slowly. I think I understand. Good. Borum turned off the display. The image of the Vrexian ship disappeared, replaced by empty darkness. Then go out there and make sure it never has to happen again. Talk, listen, give chances, and pray that no one ever forces humanity to stop. The young Vrexian left. Borum stood alone in her empty classroom, looking at the stars through the window. Somewhere out there, human diplomats were talking, arguing, negotiating, giving the galaxy one more chance to be better. She hoped they never stopped, because she remembered what happened when they did, and she never wanted to see that silence again.